Britain's favourite David Jason has another case to crack on A Touch of Frost at 8:30. But now on ITV1, Hillary Clinton tells all on a Tonight with Trevor McDonald exclusive.
Good evening from Washington, D.C. for this special edition of the Tonight program with me, Trevor McDonald. Behind me stands the White House, where Hillary Clinton lived with her husband, President Bill Clinton, for 8 turbulent years. It was the scene of high politics, great drama, and a scandal that almost destroyed them. Now, for the first time, Hillary Clinton has agreed to tell her side of the story. Tonight, we'll hear whether she wants to be president, her view of her husband's behavior, and her reaction to the truth about Monica Lewinsky. This is the Hillary Clinton interview. In the heat of the moment, did you never say, "That's it, I'm out of here, this marriage is over"?
I personally did not know if the marriage would survive, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to survive. I wanted to wring his neck. I couldn't believe he had done that to us.
Have you forgiven your husband?
It was very hard because he not only was my husband, he'd been my best friend for 30 years.
Do you feel sorry for Monica Lewinsky? You said that at the Yale campus it was rather difficult to miss Bill Clinton. What was it that attracted you to him?
Just his vitality, his obvious energy. He was certainly attractive, even though I point out he looked like a Viking, not at all like what people think of when they view him now in the lens of history as president. But he and I just started talking, and we haven't stopped for all these years. And it was something never I could have predicted, that I would have met and married someone from Arkansas who would have ended up being president. When I first met him, I was just attracted to him and found him immensely exciting.
He pursued you. You turned down his proposals of marriage a couple of times. Once he proposed to you in Britain, in fact.
He did.
What was it that ultimately convinced you to take the plunge?
Well, I always knew that I loved him and that I was in love with him. And I also knew that he was like a force of nature, that there was an energy field around him that just brought everyone into it. And I wanted to be sure that I was going to be able to define myself, make my own identity as authentic as I could. So when he first asked me, we were at Lake Ennerdale in the Lake District. I said, no, not now. I did love him, but I just wasn't ready yet to commit to marriage. Eventually, though, he persisted and persuaded me.
Was there ever in your mind the slightest doubt that your lives would be dominated by politics?
Once I got to know Bill and understood what he wanted to do, to go back home to Arkansas and try to contribute to the people that he'd grown up with, I knew that he'd want a political career, but there's nothing certain about that. There are many people in our country who think they want a political career but don't try or are not successful.
Why was it ever so certain that the political career would be his and not yours?
Because he was so sure about what he wanted. I always knew that I wanted to affect what happened in the public arena, but I never saw myself actually running for office. And he was such a natural and such an extrovert that I hoped for him that he would be successful.
Yes, I was Bill Clinton's lover for 12 years.
I'm not sitting here as some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette.
The race for the presidency began, and almost immediately there were allegations from a woman called Jennifer Flowers that your husband had had an affair with her. Did you believe her?
No, and as I say in the book, that's the kind of charge that has been investigated and looked into now over time. And what I thought was important in 1992 and in all the succeeding years is that The American people are actually quite shrewd about what's in their interest, and they concluded that they wanted to elect my husband president because of what he could do for them.
You went on television to defend your husband, and you said quite plainly that you weren't the type of person just to sort of stand by your man. But over the years and the succession of scandals and rumors of infidelities, that's more or less what you've had to do.
I make a choice every day how I'm going to live my life, and I hope everyone else does the same. You know, to me, most marriages are mysteries. I have no way of knowing what goes on between a husband and a wife. I don't want to know. That is their business. And I can only do what I think is right for me and my family, and that's what I've chosen to do over these many years.
I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
How much of a culture shock was it getting into the White House? You tell the story about the butler on the very first morning.
I do tell that story because that really symbolized the culture shock. Here we were after having only been asleep for a couple of hours because, of course, we'd gone to every single one of the inaugural balls. And we were in this grand, large master bedroom on the second floor of the White House, having just been vacated the night before by the Bushes. And around 5 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock on the door, and then the door opened. And both Bill and I...
A bit early.
Oh, my goodness. Not only early, but having someone walk in like that. And, of course, we learned that the Bushes were very early risers. They were used to having a butler walk in with a silver tray and cups of coffee. But the first words that this poor man heard from the new President of the United States is, "What are you doing here? Get out."
You chafed constantly at the image of the conventional First Lady. From the outset, you wanted to be involved in the politics of the place and in the politics of the nation. On reflection, do you think that was a mistake?
Well, I certainly think it was quite a change, and therefore very difficult for me to actually accomplish and for many in the country to accept. And I had always worked. I mean, I started working when I was 13 years old. I had worked all through school. I certainly had worked all through my marriage. And I really believed in what my husband was trying to do. When he was governor of Arkansas, I helped him every way that I could. I wanted to contribute. And I very well knew that everyone in the White House, including me, were only there because of who was president.
But isn't it the case that in the end, you didn't change the White House? That powerful machine changed you. You had to go native.
That's a great phrase. Well, what I had to do was realize that I didn't have a job for the first time in my life. The traditional roles of First Lady, the entertaining, the care and concern for the house and the grounds, I actually loved that. And what I always found somewhat amusing is that all the women I know live lives that if you took a snapshot at one time, you might see there she is as mother, or there she is as barrister, or there she is as teacher, or there she is as daughter with an elderly parent. But those are all of our various roles and responsibilities. And as a sort of baby boomer generation First Lady, I was living out on a very public stage what my friends were living out. Although if I appeared in a fancy ball gown at a state dinner, I would be criticized for not worrying about policy. If I worried about policy, I'd be criticized for putting my 2 cents in where it didn't belong. So what I did conclude was that I just had to do the best I could, and that's what I tried to do for the majority of his term.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
The only people who count in any marriage are the two that are in it.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
The story that changed everything, the presidency and your marriage, was the Monica Lewinsky story. Tell me how you first heard about that.
Well, I heard about it in a conversation from my husband on an early January morning in 1998 when he woke me up to tell me that he wanted to give me advance notice that there would be an article in the newspaper alleging that he had some kind of relationship with a young woman. He told me it wasn't true. I asked him a lot of questions. I cross-examined him, as I suppose
you're a lawyer, yes.
most wives, and particularly lawyer wives, might do. And people have said, well, how could you believe him? Well, you know, by that time, Trevor, I had been myself subjected to so many false accusations. I had been accused of everything by the right-wing tabloids and the talk radio people and the cable channels and all of their little networks, that to me it wasn't at all surprising that he would be subjected to one more accusation. And so I believed him and did until he told me differently.
I can see that, but did you never think that these allegations were coming up? They'd come up before. Perhaps there's some scintilla of truth in it. You never did.
I didn't.
So you thought this was political?
Oh, I knew it was political. And even when it turned out, unfortunately, to be true, it was still political. And that's a point I try to make in the book, is that this very personal, painful experience for us as a couple and a family was brought to public light, not by people who cared about my husband's soul or our marriage. You know, they were motivated by political malice.
But that's the nature of politics, though, isn't it?
Oh, if you look back in our history, I don't think we've ever elected a saint to be president. All of us have flaws and weaknesses and foibles, but until recently, public leadership was the standard by which one was judged. And now we live in a 24-hour news cycle where things that are totally made up can be literally around the world with a flick of the mouse. And I was in the midst of that transition and change, and I knew that so many things had been said about me that personally I absolutely knew were false, that I assumed that this was another in the line of that.
But when the truth emerged, your husband the president had to come and tell you. How did he do that?
Well, again, it was months later in August, early in the morning. He was scheduled to testify before the Starr grand jury 2 days later, and he woke me up again early and in a very agitated, anxious way told me that he had not told me the whole truth. And, you know, I was furious and I was heartbroken and I was angry at him and I just was beside myself because I had believed him. And obviously I had wanted to believe him and I had chosen to believe him. But then I was told that I had been misled along with, you know, everyone else.
We remember the picture of you all setting off on what was called a family holiday.
Well, as I write in the book, I did not want to go on any vacation, but I also didn't want to stay in the White House. So again, I was somewhat in a trap. I couldn't go off by myself. I couldn't, you know, say goodbye. I couldn't throw my husband's clothes out on the back lawn. You know, there were all sorts of options that were not available to me. And so off we went. And
how bad did the atmosphere get on holiday?
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine, you understand. I mean, it was very difficult. I wasn't able even to talk to him. And it was very hard because he not only was my husband, he'd been my best friend for 30 years. The only member of our family who wanted to be with him was Buddy, our dog. And that is the unconditional love and loyalty of a pet, I guess. It was during that time, however, and all of the long walks that I took and the time I had to spend alone and really searching my heart that I thought, you know, I have to decide what the right thing to do is. And I have to at least give my husband a chance to try to explain himself to me, and I have to be willing to listen. I don't know where it will lead, and so that's why we went into counseling.
People also said, how come you didn't know there were the logs of visits, there were the gifts? One of your advisors actually said to you, look, some of this might turn out to be true.
My advisor said that to me the night before I found out. But, you know, I also stopped reading the newspapers and watching television during the last difficult years.
It's almost a case of sort of plausible deniability.
No, it's a case of self-preservation in a very hot spotlight where it's very clear that there are all these people out there who are anxious to see you brought down, who want to trigger a devastating personal, emotional collapse.
In the heat of the moment, did you never say, "That's it, I'm out of here, this marriage is over"?
I had to really search my heart to decide whether this was something I wanted to continue.
When you discovered the truth about the Monica Lewinsky affair, did you not begin to wonder whether there was some truth in some of the others, you know, the Jennifer Flowers and the Paula Jones?
It's their most incredible free flights offer ever. The Mail is giving every reader a free scheduled return flight to any one of 10 fabulous holiday destinations. You choose where you want to go. Yes, your chosen destination guaranteed. There's a free return flight for everyone to the destination of your choice, starting in tomorrow's Daily Mail.
Early man found it surprisingly easy to drink the recommended 8 glasses of water a day. Volvic Touch of Fruit, a delicious blend of natural fruit flavors and Volvic mineral water. Volvic Touch of Fruit water never tasted so good.
I found something stronger against shock.
New L'Oreal Ceramide Resist. Stronger feeling nails. Up to 5-day hold. Ceramide Resist.
Under the color, the strength.
You know what gets right up my nose?
Yes, what is it?
Don't ask any questions.
A Touch of Frost. Tonight, 8:30 on ITV1.
In the heat of the moment, did you never say, "That's it, I'm out of here, this marriage is over"?
You know, I was in a circumstance that was, to say the least, unusual. And I personally did not know if the marriage would survive. And I wasn't sure I wanted it to survive. I had to spend a lot of time by myself. I had to really search my heart to decide whether this was something I wanted to continue. But in addition to his being my husband, and I say, I wanted to wring his neck. I couldn't believe he had done that to us. He was also my president. And he was a president whose public actions...
Extremely lofty view to take of,
but you see,
infidelity.
I can't tell you what would have happened, could have happened, should have happened if we had not woken up that morning in the White House, if I had not been married to the President of the United States, if I had not known at the time that the campaign to discredit and undermine him was part of a political, partisan power grab by people who wished us ill, who really had a very different political agenda, and were trying by any means possible to implement it.
But you were betrayed. You were, in a way, you were used, and many people in the constituency for which you speak so eloquently, women, they say, how on earth could she stay in such a marriage?
Well, I can only say what I have said throughout my life, which is that I have fought for the rights of women to make the choices that are best for them and their families. I know about a lot of marriages. Some women have made the same choice I've made, and some women have made a different choice. But that is such an intensely personal matter. And throughout my life, I've had to listen hard to what I thought was right.
Have you forgiven your husband?
Yes, I have. Absolutely. I think that this very excruciating process, which I would not wish on anyone, especially under the circumstances that I experienced it, turned out to be one of those turning points where, I learned a great deal as well. And,
and is there more trust in the marriage now? Do you trust him?
We are hoping to grow old together. That is something that is our goal. And I think learning to forgive is important because I know that every single day, every one of us do something that we probably should be forgiven for. Maybe it's just a small slight, or maybe it's something large, but nevertheless, life is challenging and hard work, and marriage is very, very hard work.
Do you feel sorry for Monica Lewinsky?
You know, I feel sorry for everyone who was caught up in this relentless partisan investigation. I think it was...
But about her in particular, do you feel sorry for her?
Absolutely.
She was a victim too, in a way.
Absolutely. But there were so many victims.
When you discovered the truth about the Monica Lewinsky affair, did you not begin to wonder whether there was some truth in some of the others, you know, the Jennifer Flowers and the Paula Jones?
You know, I am going to let my book speak for itself. And I think that I have certainly gone much farther in talking about matters that I do consider private than I ever would have had not those private matters been made public.
When I was coming here, the immigration officer at the airport said to me, why are you here? What are you doing? I said, I'm going to interview Hillary Clinton. He said, she gets my vote.
Oh, my goodness.
You're for president, so you're a clear favorite. Why would you commit?
You know, I have a very, very good job right now that I love, representing New York, which is like representing the world. You know, every kind of person lives in New York. We are really the global
But you've
center.
always talked about the importance of getting women at the center of politics.
Absolutely.
And the center of politics could be the White House. It's a similar case. You said you will answer the call, you said in the book. You did in the Senate. A similar situation arises now. You're the clear favorite.
Well, I think we have some very good people running for the Democratic nomination, and I look
Nobody
forward to
knows
supporting
you were head and shoulders over them in public recognition, in name recognition. People had never heard of them.
But no one had heard of my husband when he started running for president either. And someone will emerge, and they will make a very strong case against George Bush.
Can you say categorically that you're not planning a campaign around on the president?
I have no intention to run for president. Absolutely right.
But you don't answer the question about whether you're planning to.
I'm not planning to either. No intention and no planning go underway.
Can I just ask you, finally, to end this, do you think Blair and Bush exaggerated evidence about weapons of mass destruction to prove that Iraq did have these weapons?
I think that's a very serious question, and I hope that in both our countries we have independent inquiries that get to the facts about the intelligence. What's important is that we really do find out what the truth was, because this is not just about the past, whether or not the intelligence was either wrong or skewed for whatever purpose, but going forward, especially given this administration's attitudes, we have to be sure that when this administration says it's going to take action based on intelligence, that in our democracy we're getting the straight information.
That's the point. The nation may have been misled.
Well, we don't know that yet. But that's why this cannot be left unanswered. The questions are legitimate and they're credible. In our country, I'm hoping we will have a bipartisan Senate investigation of our Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. I sit on that committee because I want to know the answers. I voted for the Iraqi resolution, and I did it in large measure based on the intelligence that I was privy to.
You talked about the intrusion into your own personal life. Do you sympathize with people like Cherie Blair, a working mother like you, who has to endure similar problems of intrusion from tabloid press and intrusion into privacy?
No, Cherie is a friend of mine. I have a very high regard for her. I think that the extraordinary balancing act that she has performed as the mother of four, as a full-time barrister, as a maid and confidant for her husband, as someone involved in all kinds of public charities and good works, has been extraordinary. And I think to some extent some of the criticism aimed at her is from the same kind of concerns that it was aimed at me about. You know, you're not a traditional prime minister's wife. You know, you continue your own career. You have your own thoughts and opinions. But we should be beyond that. You know, this is the 21st century, and thankfully women, at least in the Western world, are coming into their own. And we just need to keep doing what is right for us and to make the choices that are right for us. And I think Cherie has done an admirable job of that.
Finally, you said politics is always about the future.
Yes.
Now, the future beckons you. Will you answer the call?
Well, you know, I'm going to do the very best I can to answer the call of my constituents and do everything possible to be the best senator for New York.
Senator, thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
David Jason has another case to crack on A Touch of Frost. That's next here tonight. Then at 10:30, it's the ITV News.